doubled my time, the amount of time I've played Hades.
Nice.
I went from 50 to almost 120 in the last week and a half.
Hell yeah. I love Hades, but as soon as Mars beat it and I was shown the story, my brain was like, all right, we've seen the story, we're done.
Yeah, that's part of I've not seen a lot of the story, so I'm just kind of wrapping up. I've got the main stuff done, so now I'm just wrapping up all the companions.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, I didn't. As soon as I saw the main story, my brain was like, we don't need to play anymore, but I'll probably go back to it eventually.
So if you get a chance, get Disco Elysium. Freaking one, probably the best game I've ever played. Made me cry the first time.
Oh shit!
And not tears of frustration like Dark Souls does.
Yeah, or fucking Elden Ring.
Anyway,
hi everybody.
Hello, welcome to our haunted backyard. I'm making eye contact with myself in the video, and I'm getting uncomfortable.
You're getting uncomfortable with your own eye contact?
I was like, oh no, Ian, stop. I'm gonna have to hide my face because I'm gonna
stare at myself.
There we go. I can't see myself. I just see the Nigel Thornberry Frankenfurter.
Nice. What do we do on this podcast, Ian? What do we talk about on this podcast?
Video games. A lot.
Yeah, apparently.
No, this is Our Haunted Backyard, the podcast where we talk about country road cryptids, small town spooky, and other local legends.
Yeah, we do.
And generally, we start with beer in our backyard.
We do generally, yes.
Especially when we are recording together, but we are recording separately today.
Yes.
However, I am drinking, not gonna lie, I was gonna wait to drink it with you, but I was like, it's in a can, I don't know how long it will last.
It's okay.
The Oregon Pale.
The Oregon Pale, like Oregon District?
Yeah. Like Oregon Trail.
Oh, like Oregon Trail. Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, okay.
It's got all the old Oregon Trail graphics, and it says, quarantine has left the wagon full of beer. You may drink beer, or drink more beer.
I have Atomic Pumpkin because I still have a lot left over from Lucas. So thanks, Lucas.
The Oregon Pale is an American pale ale brewed by Mere Twin Brewing Company in Lexington.
So cool. Lexington, Kentucky.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's a little on the hoppy side, but not as bad as some IPAs can get.
Yeah, that's fair.
Nice and light, and I'm enjoying it.
I always enjoy Atomic Pumpkin. It's my favorite seasonal beer. Not a sponsor. But they could be. Voodoo Ranger, you could sponsor us. It's fine.
That's our beers today.
So
today, our episode today is a little different from our general format.
A little bit, yeah.
Because we're tackling kind of a bigger subject that we've talked about before.
Yes,
we split the research a little bit. So I'm going to focus a little more on the history because there is some interesting history to this place. Yeah. And you're doing more of the spooky stuff.
And I'm doing more of the spooky stuff with should we say it on three or should we say it together on three what we're doing?
Yeah, and I'll play a stinger. I'll put some music or something like that. So we are going to be talking about the ridges.
I thought we were going to say Athens.
No, we're keeping that one take only.
One take only. That's what we did. We did it one. We're one takes.
We're talking today about the ridges.
Yes.
In Athens, Ohio, which we also realized so much can be talked. Athens, Ohio is a severely haunted town.
There's so many. There's just so much to talk about. Yeah, in Athens, so much so.
There's some great. When I was living out there, I read a lot of the folklore.
Yeah,
there's some great ones.
So much so that it was featured on my favorite scary show that we talked about in episode 0, Scariest Places on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
It was featured in that episode. I want to say that was the first episode I ever watched.
I want to say the university is one of the, if not the most haunted university in the country. Yeah. And the city is one of the most haunted in the country. It's up there.
Yeah. At the time that the episode was recorded, it said that the British Psychological Society, which I didn't even know there was
the Society for Psychical Research.
Yeah, it is at the time it was the 13th most haunted place in the world. for like in America. And they on that Scariest Places on Earth episode, they did have like a lot of the information, but they also fabricated a healthy amount of information because it's TV.
Mm-hmm.
Like they called the episode Satan's Dormitory.
A lot of the stories I heard are the dormitories and like the frat houses and stuff like that are haunted. When I was doing research for the Ridges, that's a lot of what I was finding when I'd be looking up haunting stuff in Athens. There was going to be stuff about the Ridges, but there was a lot more about the university, partially because that's where like it is a university town. When I went there for my master's degree.
Yeah,
I lived there for about 2 years, and because it's a master's, I still had to go to school over the summer. Like even if I wasn't taking classes, I was writing and teaching, and so I was still out there during the summer. And the population, when it's the off season, when school's not in session, it's like a third of the size that when school starts, the population like triples. It's ridiculous. So when people have experiences with Athens, generally it is they went to the school, which is a great school. I loved it. I wish I would have gone there for my undergrad.
Yeah.
Beautiful campus, like a lot of hills and just a lot of it's forested. It is a very, very rural county. It is actually the poorest county in Ohio.
Really?
Yeah. It's the numbers on its like the economy get inflated because of the town, because of Athens city, but like the rest of it is just very, very rural, very poor, to the extent where it kind of became the place to go as a reporter. If you were going to report on poverty, you would go to Athens County.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
Yeah, what a lot of people don't think of, because when they think about the town,
Ohio. The university.
Which is the Athens town is small. The university is kind of right there in the middle of downtown. Yeah. And so like everything's kind of focused on the economy's kind of in there is kind of focused on the university. But yeah, so like once you kind of like even like kind of outside of downtown, once you start getting even in just kind of the outer edges of Athens proper, you can tell like, oh yeah, this is not a rich place.
Because it's because it's the Ohio University.
No, it's Ohio University.
Oh, okay.
And then there's the Ohio State University in Columbus.
Okay, I got a little confused because I've only ever heard Ohio State as referred to just Ohio University or just Ohio State. So I thought they were one and the same thing.
Oh no. Okay, there's a huge rivalry. Like not like sports rivalry, right, but like academic rivalry, where Ohio University in Athens is actually the oldest land grant university in the state.
Oh.
However, Ohio State, I can't remember all the story, but basically partially because they were in Columbus, they got like legal permission to be the Ohio State University. Completely the
one. This is the one.
The word the.
The Ohio State University. Oh.
Yeah. So there's Ohio State, OSU, and Ohio University, OU.
That's so like petty.
So Athens, we don't really have the history stuff on the Athens right now. We'll have to do that for the next one. But yeah, it's an old town. I know that.
I do know it's a very old town. Yeah.
It is home to what is currently called the Ridges.
Yes.
However, the Ridges is previously known as, I won't say better known as. Yeah. However, it is the home of the former Athens Lunatic Asylum.
Yep.
And a lot of the hauntings in Athens center around Ridges. Yeah,
it's this, and now this thing is imposing. Like seeing pictures of this thing, like is like when you think about like a haunted, or like a old insane asylum. This is what it looks like. This thing reminds me of fucking Arkham.
Well, I've got some information about that in regards to the history. So, the first off, I kind of wanted to get like slightly more serious for a little bit.
Okay.
So we're going to be talking about a mental health hospital, an insane asylum.
Yeah.
There's going to be some not happy stuff.
No.
So like content warning about some of the things that we might talk about. Also, I think there's a lot of stories about a lot of haunted asylums.
Yeah, there is.
And I think those kind of stories can very easily go hand in hand with the stereotypes of people with mental health issues being violent. Where it is actually like more the case that they're going to be the victims of violence. It's kind of like how when there's a mass shooting or something like that, the first thing people want to say is, "Oh, they're crazy." No, don't pin this on mental illness. Like this is like that is something like that is another issue. However, like all the studies show, people with mental health issues tend to be the victims of violence rather than the perpetrators.
Exactly.
So I can, like kind of going into all of this, I want that to be in everybody's brain. It's also it's not quite the same as like Indian burial grounds.
No,
but it's one of those things where because a lot of horrible things happened in these asylums. I think there's like I want to say like the bad things are what were done to these patients, not necessarily the patients themselves.
Yeah, exactly. It's especially because when these things were built and when and the people that were inhabiting these, most of the time they were perfectly able to live functioning lives.
Like wait till you hear just some of the reasons that these people were admitted.
Because back in the day, you could put your child in an insane asylum for just not wanting to have children or just being like slightly on the autism spectrum or like being having a form of ADHD back then. Like there were, and most of the time masturbating
or masturbating.
Yeah, you could do it for masturbating. And most of the time correct me if I'm wrong, like a lot of insane asylums were like populated by like back in the day, wasn't it like unfortunately like populated by mostly female and women?
Yeah,
like
the women would get admitted
for horrible
things like we'll talk about it a little bit more, but like things like masturbation, menopause, just being a woman with emotions, so
I would have been
I just kind of wanted to put that out there and like let people know, like when you're thinking about asylums, and especially when you're talking about them in the context of the supernatural and haunting, just keep that in your brain, that don't try to play into the tropes like, oh, look at these scary, crazy people. The horrific things that happened weren't usually done by the patients. They were being done mostly by the staff and the doctors.
Yep, definitely.
So my two main sources for the history of the Ridges, formerly, there was a bunch of different names. It started out as Athens Lunatic Asylum, Athens Hospital for the Insane, Athens Asylum for the Insane, Athens State Hospital, Southeastern Ohio Mental Health Center, Athens Mental Health Center, Athens Mental Health and Mental Retardation Center, Athens Mental Health and Developmental Center, Athens Mental Health Center again, Southeast Psychiatric Hospital, and the Appalachian Behavioral Healthcare.
That is too many names. That's too many names.
My two main sources were the archive.org version of the Friends of the Athens Cemetery, or Friends of the Athens Asylum Cemetery, which will explain what that all is in a bit. And then I also read a good portion of Catherine Ziff's Asylum on the Hill, which is a history of the Athens Asylum for the Insane. It was first kind of conceived of back in 1868. However, the asylum didn't actually open until January 9th, 1874, on 141 acres of land in Athens County near the Hocking River, just south of Athens proper.
Okay.
Now, so when you're talking about it looking like Arkham, so Athens Asylum is a Kirkbride plan hospital. So Thomas Kirkbride, he had this wild idea in the early 19th century, which was like, oh, what if we helped people with mental illness by putting them in buildings that have a lot of light and air, instead of cramming them all into tiny prisons like we did, like Bedlam in London. So he was very focused on okay, if we want to cure these illnesses, it will help if we put our patients in these big structures that have a lot of natural light and a lot of flowing air, gardens, everything like that. And because of the time that he was working, the main architecture style was this big Gothic, the flying buttresses, that kind of the neo-Gothic revival of the 19th century. Complete with a lot of them followed what they called the bat wing design.
Oh, fucking course.
So it would be one building in the center, and then the wing, the administrative building would be in the center, and then the wings would shoot off of it, looking like a bat.
That's really cool. Well, look at that.
So Arkham's Asylum is based off of that design. Yeah.
Yeah, it was right on the money with Arkham Asylum.
The building of the Athens Asylum was designed by Levi Schofield of Cleveland. The original building was 850 feet long, averaging 60 feet in width. Over 18 million bricks were used in its construction, all made on site. And the original site consisted of an administrative building, which contained reception rooms, apartments for the upper staff, a ballroom, and a chapel. And then coming off of the administrative building, there were 2 wings, each with 3 sections. The left side for men, the right for women. And all in all, there was room for 572 patients. Yeah, so like a decent-sized hospital for back in the day.
Decent-sized hospital, yeah.
The wings contained private rooms for the patients with sitting or activity rooms at each end of the ward. And then the wards were categorized by the level of patient distress. The most functional were placed in the wards nearest the administrative building. And then the most distressed were at the farther ends.
Oh, okay.
And then over the years, there were a variety of different modifications and additions to the original complex. Around the turn of the century, they implemented what they called the cottage plan, which they added 7 cottages to the grounds and an amusement hall, in addition to barns, workshops. It ended up becoming kind of a self-sustaining farm. Actually, right around the time they implemented the cottage plan, they had gardens, general farms, vineyards, orchards, a piggery, which I just like that word. A dairy and poultry operations. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that is actually really neat. I mean, besides all the horrible things that happened in there, that's actually pretty neat.
We'll get a little into that. The one thing that did not see a lot of modifications over the years is the 3 graveyards that are located on the grounds.
Oh.
Burials began soon after opening the asylum, and because the deceased would be, for a variety of reasons, unclaimed by their families. Either they wouldn't have a family, or the family couldn't afford it. Yeah. So until 1943, the headstones only had numbers on them. There was no name.
Ah, that's horrible.
So the Friends of the Athens Cemetery that I talked about earlier, one of the things they tried to do was basically they found a ledger that had about 1,700 names. There was over 2,000 buried. And so we don't know, there's still a good portion we don't know who they are, but the Friends of the Cemetery, they got a hold of the ledger and they basically they went around just cataloging and identifying who was buried where, and then researching to see if they had living family, if they had family, and then letting them know, like, we found. Yeah, I thought it's a really cool organization. I don't know if they're still active or not.
Yeah, that's so nice.
But just the work they're doing was really cool, because they would inform family and say, would you like help moving the body? So now, of course, main purpose of the asylum was to house and treat people with a variety of mental health issues. Patients could range from children to the aged, and from people with like very, very slight issues to people who had like very severe mental health issues. And furthermore, kind of like what we were talking earlier, patients could include anyone from like people with like legitimate severe mental health issues to people who would nowadays would be like, oh yeah, that's not an illness. And so it would be patients suffering from epilepsy, menopause, alcoholism, self-abuse, masturbation, and even tuberculosis. They're like, oh yeah, we can't have tuberculosis people around us. We have to put them somewhere else.
Put them somewhere else. Put them in an enclosed environment, because TB is also incredibly contagious. Am I right? Is that right? I feel like that's right. Okay, I was like,
I'll cut it out just in case we aren't.
Okay, it's like if I'm wrong, call me out on it. But like,
and the first patient there, I saw a couple different ages for her. However, I'm going with what was in the Asylum on the Hill book that by Catherine Ziff that I mentioned earlier. Yeah. She says that the first patient was an 11-year-old girl named Alice. And Alice just suffered from what we now call today some sort of seizure disorder. Back then, they listed it as epilepsy, because that kind of got to be a catch-all term for having seizures. But other than that, there was she probably it seemed like she had some kind of depression and anxiety based around it. But by and large, this was the issue. Treatments for their patients could range from work therapy, and that would be things like your work on the farm, or crafting baskets. I think they had a blacksmith.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So just labor.
Oh yeah, but it was also
free labor.
It will be. It's people like being useful and people like doing things, and so it's a way of we're going to let you do thing. We're going to give help you find do works that you have You don't just feel like you're sitting here.
Okay,
At the same time, I'm sure free labor wasn't. I saw stats on how much they were paid, but I can't remember. I'm sure it wasn't great.
Probably not.
And so work therapy, hydrotherapy, which sounds very pleasant, but give me a minute.
Say that that doesn't even sound pleasant to me.
Later on, there would be lobotomies and electroshock therapy performed there. Now hydrotherapy, Jesus. Which at first sounds like a pleasant bath. And I don't want to make light of this, but it just, when I read this, it shocked me so much. I'm like, no, this is not possible. So it could include jets of cold water to the head, hidden trap doors through which patients would plunge for a bath of surprise. That's what they called it.
I don't like the idea of a surprise bath. Plunge for a surprise. I hate that. I hate that.
Bath of surprise, just specifically that term is hilarious to me. And then like the most like horrifying would be coffins with holes drilled in them, into which patients were put and then basically held underwater, and they would be like nearly drowned because that was considered to be calming.
It's not therapy.
I'm like, I don't think they're calming, my dude. No. I think they're unconscious.
You're drowning them. Like you're giving them a near-death experience.
I realize you're a mind doctor, not a lung doctor, but I'm just saying, like, usually putting water in somebody's lungs, not that great for them.
The craziest fucking thing. Like listening to all these like therapy terms or like just anything like that. Like back then, they're like, man, you could get away with anything,
especially like psychiatry. Like
you could get away with saying anything was therapeutic.
Like. This is a step up from like, let's just put them in prison and barely feed them. But it's not it's a
step up. But no, it's like a baby step up. Like, we'll try to help them. But also, what would happen if we drilled holes in a coffin and put a person in there and then like filled it up with water? I wonder what that would be like.
And they do things like wrap, like they wet wraps. Basically, they like get a blanket, like soak it, and then wrap the person in it and be like, guess what? This is what you're doing for today. You're going to be in this blanket.
Oh,
yeah, no. So like I said, I don't want to go into a lot of details, but there were some legitimately horrifying treatments here that these patients were patients were subject to, and a lot of times, once again, they weren't. There was nothing that, like, it would be like, yeah, a woman had menopause, and now like she's being put, like she's given baths of surprise.
She's getting bath of surprise, or I don't know what's worse, a bath of surprise or having to like be wrapped in a wet blanket. I don't know what I would hate more. Probably surprise baths.
Bad. Blanket would be like, if I have to do this for today, I would not be able to handle being wrapped in that. Bath of surprise would suck. Being wrapped in a blanket all day, I'm like, no, please.
But after the surprise is over, like after the period of the surprise bath is over, it's just a bath after that. Yeah, but a wet blanket wrapped up in you. Ugh, no.
I don't talk about a wet blanket. Population of the patients and staff peaked in the mid 60s, and then there was a steady decline through the 70s and 80s, as there was a trend towards deinstitutionalization of mental health patients. We stopped really thinking about mental health as an issue that can be purely cured, which is still up for debate nowadays. But it became like this isn't really something that we can cure. It's something that we need to help them manage. And it's not going to help them to keep them separate from society unless they are like so severely like a threat to themselves or to other people that they need to be kept under watch.
Exactly. It's not like these people are fucking Michael Myers.
Also, there was we started learning more and more about what the conditions were like in these asylums. And it was even like Kirkbride, for all his good intentions, he had the big cure idea in his brain, which was probably like, you got a kitten, pal.
Yes, I do. This is Phantom. This is my new kitten. Then there he goes.
Okay, so, like Kirkbride's idea was like, we want to make sure they have plenty of space and air and light. By the time you get to the 50s, it is basically back to the Bedlam days where there's people being packed into these, like as many packed into a room. Have you ever seen the documentary Cropsy?
I started watching that, and then like I never finished it.
That goes a lot, and that's focuses on like a particular case. And it's been a while since I've seen it, but like I think part of what they talk about is like they go to an abandoned asylum, but a lot of the mental health patients were still there. The asylum was shut down, but they didn't move anybody.
Yeah, I remember I started watching it. It was on, I think it was on like Tubi or something, and then I think I stopped watching it because Mars and Elle came home and they don't like scary things.
Oh no, it's disturbing.
I stopped watching.
Yeah, so by 1988, the facilities were deeded from the Department of Mental Health to Ohio University. It was renamed the Ridges. A new mental facility was opened not too long after that in 93. And now the university uses some of the buildings from the Ridges as it homes the archives and special collections. Some of their museum spaces there. So now it is owned by Ohio University. It's deeded to Ohio University, and so you can go walk. Like I've gone out there and walked around. I've been to some of the cemeteries. I've not been into any of the buildings. A number of them are shut down, or else like you can't get or else they're like school buildings.
Exactly.
I do have a friend who did get drunk one night and then like met someone, and this person was like, "Hey, do you want to go to the Ridges? I know how to get inside one of the buildings," and he did, and he doesn't like to talk about it anymore. He freaked himself. Part of it is he doesn't know if he can't really remember everything because he was very drunk. But he also I remember like the next day I didn't get a lot of details, but he was spooked. And this is a guy who doesn't generally believe in that kind of stuff. So I mean, that's kind of a brief overview of the history of the Ridges.
Yeah, again, that's what we hear all the time. We hear all the skeptics who turn into believers. We hear that more often than we hear people like us who believe turn into skeptics.
I was like peer pressured into being more of a skeptic when I was getting my degree, because I'm like, I'm getting a philosophy degree. It's not popular to believe in things. But no, like you and I are both approaching it as like are both believers. But yeah, we hear that more often than anything, is a skeptic being like, something happened to me and I can't fucking explain it, and now I'm this now. Like I may not be like hunting it, but like something happened to me and I cannot explain it. That's basically one of the reasons I decided not to be a skeptic anymore. I was like, I was starting to have enough weird things happen to me that I was like, I can't keep pretending like I'm an atheist. Like I have to like be like, there's some weird shit going on, guys. I don't know what it is, but it's probably ghosts.
But thank you for the brief history.
Yeah, well, not too brief, but I was like, this
not too brief. But
there is so much to, and it's one of those things where like I wish I could spend more time talking about the patients, because it's ultimately that's the important thing to remember, is the people who lived here and suffered here.
Exactly.
But there's also, because of the way they're treated, a lot of spooky stuff. And I know one pretty well, but you'll probably cover it. So take us away to the spooky.
It's time to get spooky, because we're a spooky podcast. So the Ohio State Reformatory, again, it was featured on an episode of ABC Families, and then into Freeform. Now Freeform, I think it got bought up and changed its name to Freeform. But it was featured on an episode of Scariest Places on Earth, which I did do like a little bit of a deep dive onto the show in our episode 0 about our horror origins, or horigins, if you will.
My horigins.
Talks about the Ridges and Athens, Ohio itself. Athens, Ohio, again, we might do more on just all of Athens in general, because it's like very active and very haunted. Like, one of the most interesting things that I find is that there's like a bunch of cemeteries in Athens. If you go on a map, they supposedly form a pentagram.
I've not heard of that. I don't know. On the Ridges, there's the circle.
Yeah. But if you connect all the cemeteries, they do form a pentagram. They supposedly form a triangle, and those cemeteries are Sims, Zion, Hennigan's, and Cuckler Cemetery. They all, and then in the center apparently is the Ridges / Ohio University. And the show, while the show It did state a couple facts. Did state a few facts, and reportedly one of the most famous things about the ridges, like the most famous like legend about the ridges. It did make a lot of things up. Reportedly they made up an entire fake news article, like a fake old news article talking about the ridges.
Oh, it's like Helltown all over again.
Exactly. And then one of the, I don't know if this is true or not, but in the episode, they talked to I think like a person in the sheriff's office or whatever. And apparently on like file, they have like what they call the spook file.
I would believe that they do. I would not be surprised.
I want to believe it's true. Like, I want to believe, if anything, the spook file is real. I hope they didn't make that up for the show, because it does sound like a show thing, but I also just really want that to be a thing.
I will like do some research and maybe like even reach out to the police department, like, hey, do you guys, is this real? Can we put in like a for these? I want to see some of the ghost things.
One of the most famous spooky stories involved with the ridges is the tragic story of Margaret Schilling. Margaret Schilling on December 1st, 1978, was on December 1st, 1968, the patient Margaret Schilling mysteriously disappeared. As the story goes, she was either playing hide and seek or she just wandered off somewhere. There are a bunch of different stories about how she ended up in this room. The most popular is that she was playing hide and seek. It seems to be the most popular, but I don't know if I 100% believe that.
Yeah, that seems like an after the fact elaboration, people adding things. That's one of the ones where they're like, this is a verifiable case. It is something like there's a lot of news articles about, but there's also a lot of legends around it. So you have to be careful about when you're doing the research, when you're reading it, making sure like go as much as the verifiable.
Exactly.
So like when people because there's a lot of stuff about her that people will make stuff up because it tells a good story. So.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so supposedly she was playing hide and seek, and the nurses who were trying to find her became again reportedly distracted and forgot to look for her. They searched for a long time, ended up with being over a month later. She was discovered by a maintenance worker with in a room that was seldom used by the building. Her clothes, though, were mysteriously like folded, like by the window. Like her clothes, when she was discovered, she was completely naked and deceased, but her clothes were weirdly folded by the window neatly.
Yeah, it was clothing was folded very neatly, like by her body.
Yeah.
It's
by her body.
And some of the details I found that when I was reading about this is that like the ward that she was, like the room she was found in, was basically in like a locked abandoned ward.
Yeah, and
it becomes one of those things where it's like, how did she get in there? Like, I'm not saying it was spooky stuff, or even like a lot of people some people think this might have been murder.
I could be on that camp. I could be on the camp if it was murder, or if not like outright murder, it was definitely done with ill intention. Mm-hmm. Because reportedly on the episode of Scariest Places, you can only lock the door from the outside.
That I'm not sure about that. I know they did do tests and they determined that she died of heart failure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they found her body on January 12th.
Yes.
Just barely over
a month after.
Yeah, barely a month after she disappeared. So it would have been cold.
Would have been extremely cold in Athens, Ohio.
But it could just be one of those things where couldn't find anything on like that talked more about her mental illness. But I could see like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to take off my clothing and fold it up real neat.
Yeah, I can't find anything on her on what she was suffering from.
Yeah.
Like whatever mental illness or how neurodivergent she was. I there's literally nothing on that.
Yeah. So it's mostly, there's just a weird detail that we can't, like, I can think of a couple of different explanations for. Yeah. It is just a weird kind of spooky detail.
Yeah. The spookiest thing about Margaret is that where she died, like where she passed away and where she died, there was a stain that was left on the floor, and through constant cleaning and multiple times cleaning it and and renovation, the stain remains.
Yeah, it is there. I know that they were talking a little bit about what they wanted to do with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you can look it up online. It is disturbing.
It's a very disturbing photo.
You can, like, it is noticeable. Like it's not just like a spot. It's not just a weird spot, but it's like noticeably an outline
of a body.
Yeah.
Like it is. Yeah. I will find a picture of it and I will be better and post on our Instagram with it. But yeah, it is a legitimate body shape. Like it's not like, oh, this kind of looks like a body, like a Rorschach thing. Like, no, it's,
or like in my old Crown Vic that I drove around that had a weird red stain on the back seat. I got it like that. I was told it was paint. I choose to believe them.
I would also choose to believe that. That is unsettling.
Did you read anything about the theories behind the stain?
No, I couldn't. I did not find any. I didn't see anything about the things on the stain.
So on the stain. There was a forensic team in 2007 who determined that the stain is likely the result of a process known as adipocere, which is basically the breakdown of body fat into, like, it's adipocere is the term for what it turns into. I can't remember the exact process name, but it basically, your body breaks down its fat into something like wax or soap.
Oh.
And there's actually, in Philadelphia, there is a woman known as the Soap Lady whose body, a lot of her body turned into this wax soap substance. Well, now, the thing that I find interesting is that adipocere generally occurs in it could create that kind of chemical reaction that could cause the stain. So that is likely what caused it.
Probably.
But once again, going back to spooky details, it is usually occurs in environments with high levels of moisture and little oxygen. And so it'll be like when you find like bodies buried in bogs or swamps, bottoms of lakes, or even like sealed caskets. Like, your body can start doing this.
That's so weird. Then why would it happen in a room in January?
Yeah, and the one that the problem I had is I couldn't find any like conflict. It seemed like there was kind of conflicting information on temperature. I think it is cold is better for the process. Heat breaks down the adipocere quickly. Because I was about to say, like, if heat is necessary for adipocere, this makes it even weirder because it was January. But what I think it is that cold helps the process. Heat breaks down the material. So I'm going to go with that one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's totally fair.
Yeah. Regardless, it's still a really, like I said, it's creepy. It is a spooky image.
It's a spooky image. Again, on the Scared to Death episode, that's another podcast I'll listen to. Shout out to Dan Combs and his wife. Not Dan Combs, but Dan Cummins and his wife. The stain, supposedly a student from Ohio University touched it and was visited by the spirit of Margaret Schelling. I don't know how true that is.
Just imagine a student like, touch the stain.
I touched the stain.
You gotta touch the stain.
You gotta touch the stain. You gotta touch the stain. You gotta do it. You gotta do it.
Yeah, there's a lot of a lot of the ghost stories tend to focus around Margaret, from what I could see.
They do. Most of the ghost stories that I could find only really focused on her. The other ones are about the cemeteries that are all connected around it.
I did find a couple other things.
Yeah. Okay. Go for it.
Margaret is kind of the standard. A lot of them, there's a lot of kind of the vague experiences, like strange figures seen roaming around the floors, disembodied voices, screaming. There gets to be a legend that patients were chained up in the basement, but there's literally no evidence for that one.
Yeah, there was no evidence for that.
But in 2005, the Ohio Exploration Group organization, basically like a group of like Ohio ghost hunters, did an investigation into the ridges. And while the Ridges tries to play down the haunting stuff for good reason. Like I think it is good for them to do that.
I think so too.
I read an article with one guy being like, I used to work there. I was an intern there. I never saw anything. And like that was going to be the close and shut of it. But then this investigation that happened in 2005, a gentleman who once occupied one of the graduate art studios in the building contacted the Ohio Exploration Society about paranormal activity he experienced. He experienced seeing his experience included seeing figures walking down the hallway from his studio out of the corner of his eye when no one was present, hearing music near the elevator that vanished upon returning to the location moments later, and seeing the figure of a man in a black coat in the reflection of the men's restroom mirror when no one was there. They also interviewed a maintenance worker who was interviewed upon our arrival, told us of several places where he had experienced paranormal activity. His experiences included seeing and interacting with shadowy figures in former activities areas and witnessing the apparition of a woman wearing a yellow dress in the doorway.
Oh.
Yeah, so a lot of shadow people.
A lot of shadow people.
Which is one of those things where it's like, yeah, if this is as a formal mental health hospital, I could see like all the stories of shadow people, like whether they are like a phenomenon that kind of grows out of these environments, or if they're drawn to those kind of environments. That would be one. I'm like, oh yeah, this is prime shadow people location.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, it's got to be, because whether they are like shadows of people that were there or they're entities that are drawn to it, it just seems like this place would really attract those kind of.
I'll post some of the stuff from the investigation. But they did an EVP, and they found one where it sounds like they hear somebody saying, "Would you help us?"
Oh God!
And there's another one where there's a scream.
Oh
yeah! I had to brace myself when I was like, "Oh no, I'm gonna spook myself." But the scream is just like, you can hear it, but it's like not it's not like a horror film like screaming ghost and things.
That's what I immediately pictured. That's what I immediately pictured in my brain, was like an actual scream.
And they did do their due diligence, and they test the acoustics of the hallway where the graduate student had reported hearing music, and they found that you could hear somebody speaking on the first floor landing from the top of the stairwell.
Oh, okay.
So they're like, we don't know if this is why, but we found evidence that it is possible that if like somebody was listening to music down here, or music, like somebody opened the door and music came, like somebody was playing music outside, it could bounce from the landing up to the top of the stairs.
Yeah, that could explain it. Yeah, which is we've talked about it before. I just like when the ghost hunters will also be like, oh hey, this could also be a thing that happened.
Yeah. Okay, so you've got stuff on the cemeteries now.
Yes, I do. I've got stuff on a little bit on the cemeteries. Like I said at the beginning, there are about 5 cemeteries that reportedly make a pentagram shape, and they are the Sims, Zion, Higgins, Kuckler, and Hanning cemeteries, and they all like connect and can make a star. And the Sim cemetery is named after its former resident and judge of Athens, John Sims, who passed away in 1861 and is buried in the cemetery. And legend has it the cemetery is said to move, making it incredibly difficult to find, which I don't know what
the cemetery moves?
That's what it says. I'm not sure what that exactly means.
I imagine that there's like one guy, and he like every like month or so, he's like, I gotta fucking dig up these bodies. I'm gonna move them somewhere else.
Move them all.
Bury them, dig them back up a month later. Because everybody's coming out here trying to do witchcraft in my cemetery. Not allowed.
The Hanning Cemetery in Athens connects to former resident of it, Shivy Hall, and in the 1970s, the female resident Shivy had a strange attraction to the Hanning Cemetery. It was assumed she was a former witch, being called back to the roots of her cemetery. A lot of strange deaths have also happened in Athens. The residents in the OU campus, the convention center, once housed a resident assisted in killing her boyfriend. And it was said that she still walks the halls, making sure residents are safe. So that's like not part of the cemetery, but it is a part of the OU, because again, in the middle of the pentagram is the Ohio University, like where the ridge is kind of is, because again, it's owned by Ohio University now. There was also early 2000s and late 90s, they were going to have a completely open open slot for anyone who wanted to come into the ridges could come in to the building, and they were going to completely open it for everyone for like a specific night. But then they underestimated how many people were going to be interested in this, so they completely shut it down. Yeah, they completely shut it down. They're like, never mind, too many people.
Like Athens has a big like hippie vibe, and so I could completely see like every single like weirdo in the town. I mean, I probably would have gone too. Like, yeah,
I totally would have gone.
But like, so like everyone be like, ghost hunt time, let's go.
Like, ghost hunt time, we're going. In Scariest Place on Earth, it was kind of hilarious because they were going through on the OSU campus, and there was the story that I'm pretty sure they completely made up because I couldn't find anything on it. A woman who was supposedly into the dark arts was practicing in her room, and they found her dead in the room with like sigils of blood smeared all over her room.
The gothist art.
And they would hear reports of chanting in deep guttural like voices at night, which I'm like, I couldn't find anything on that, and I'm like, well, that's the thing they probably made up for the show.
Yeah, that would not surprise me. There are a lot of spooky Athens stories, but that's one I haven't come across yet. But my personal favorite is Stroud. Did you come across Stroud the buffalo?
No, I have not.
There's a story about a ghost buffalo, a headless ghost buffalo.
Headless ghost buffalo.
And supposedly his head was buried with Confederate treasure, like Confederate gold.
Oh my God.
So he's wandering around trying to find his head. There's other ghost buffalo stories too, because I guess there used to be buffalo that lived in the area, but like there's also Stroud specifically, because I think Stroud was the name of a Civil War military officer, like a Union military officer. There's also a park called Stroud's Run.
Yeah.
But Stroud the buffalo was said to haunt like Athens, was like the campus proper. I always wanted to see Stroud.
Couldn't find anything on Stroud.
I wanted to see Stroud so much when I was there.
I couldn't find anything on Stroud. Like, I could not find anything.
I don't care if the story's made up. I want to meet Stroud the headless buffalo.
It's the same as the ghost horse. It's the same as the ghost horse.
Ghost horse can like they're the mounts of Piss Colonel versus Happy Captain from the last episode.
Yeah, about the Lake Erie Sea Captain.
The podcast is just building up to a film. We're gonna make a movie.
Yes, 6 seasons in a movie.
But yeah, so that's. Do you have any other stories for us tonight?
I do not, and the battery on this laptop is unfortunately running low.
Okay, so we will wrap this up and say, if you have any stories about Athens, the ridges, or any of the ghosts in that area, give us an email at hauntedbackyardcast@gmail.com, or find us at our various social medias that we are on. We just don't use very often.
We're on. We just don't use very often because, again, fair season is busy.
But yeah. So yeah, send us emails about any ghost stories you have, Athens or otherwise. Follow us on social media, because then we might actually use it. And force your friends and enemies to listen to us.
Please do.
Threaten to send Stroud, or do like the deep guttural chanting. Like, if you don't listen to this podcast, I'm going to gutturally chant in your ear while you're sleeping.
I'm gutturally chant at you. I shamelessly plug this podcast anytime someone mentions Spotify, music, ghosts, Mothman,
breathing,
or anything like that. Like, I shamelessly promote this thing. Like, and I feel like if you do a shameless promotion, if you are like to your friends or like acquaintances, if you're like, hey, if you like preference it with like, oh, shameless promotion, but like I have a podcast. Like,
I don't feel any shame about promoting us because we're awesome.
We are awesome, but you know what I mean. Like we're two white bearded men with a podcast. Like, whoa, Original.
But yeah, so pass us around like a blunt.
Yes. Yes, please.
Smoke us.
Smoke us if you got us.
Call me Roachy. I don't know where that came from.
Master Roachy, what are you doing here? Dragon Pot Z.
I'm worn out, I think. Okay, so thank you for listening again. And until next time.
Thank you, everybody.
Stay spooky. Stay nice.
Bye-bye.